Simulation Theory by Jonathan Lippe, Chapter 5, Dreams. The worst mistake that you could make is to think you're alive when really you're asleep in life's waiting room. Guy Forsyth in the movie Waking Life. Dreams. Introduction. We all spend 1/3 of our lives in the dream world. The dream world consists of roughly 33% of our existence. We spend 1 out of every 3 minutes of our lives in another dimension. Realizing this, I try to have the most enjoyable dream experience possible. Because I value my dream life, I try to be a good person in my waking life, so when I sleep, I won't have any nightmares from some form of moral dishonesty conflicting with my subconscious. I have no problem falling asleep. Sleeping is one of my most favorite things to do because of the fun and learning experience I have in the dream world. I could fall asleep right now. My dream world wears me out. I usually wake up exhausted. It's hard to want to get out of bed sometimes. I'm more tired than I was before I went to sleep, it seems. The adventures I have in the dream world satisfy me so much that in my waking life, I don't feel like I need to be adventurous. I wish I could videotape my dreams. I write down the more interesting ones so I could remember them. It is the only form of a dream world memorabilia available. I'll also dictate them into a voice recorder and write them down later for me to remember the great time I had and share with others. I can't take video or pictures back from the dream realm, but I can take the experience and write it down. I write them down as soon as I wake up because after a couple of hours into my waking day, the memory fades away. I keep a light, a pad, and a pen by my bed. We store memories of photos and videos of events we attend in our waking world like weddings, vacations, and graduations. Why not keep something from our dream world? Shouldn't our dreams get acknowledged? I'm sharing these dreams with the reader because, man, most of this stuff is super cool and should be made into a movie. Each dream is like a short story with characters, settings, and all other elements, so read them as such. Outer Space Dreams. Many, but not all of my outer space dreams take place on Mars. Mars Dream 1, Meeting the Martians. I was with a group of space explorers. Some of us were of the scientist, engineer, astronaut type. Others were of the Navy SEALs type. We landed on Mars in a Vietnam-type jungle. Yes, there was plant growth on Mars. The first thing we noticed was that there was breathable air. We crawled through the jungle forest and were spotted by these animal-human creatures similar to the monsters in the movie Time Machine. Actually, they look like the character Moloch from the video game Mortal Kombat 5 Deadly Alliance, but I don't think most people would be familiar with that. They began to chase and hunt us. We ran from them. The chase they put us on caused us to stumble upon this great building. Once we crossed the boundary, which became property of the building, the monster things had to stop and respect the border of this place. We walked safely into the building. The doors automatically opened for us. Inside, we walked in, and there were Martian scientists in white lab coats. Their faces looked like Japanese humans. They noticed we were there, but were not alarmed, but were curious as to why we were there. We tried communicating with them verbally, but neither of us could understand each other's language, so we began to use gestures to express ourselves to each other. They brought us a map and a globe of Mars. They used body language suggestion to us to show them by pointing to a location on the globe where on Mars we were from. We then tried to explain back to them that we weren't from anywhere on Mars. At first, they were puzzled. They wondered to us, "What do you mean you aren't from anywhere on Mars?" We looked on their shelves for a Martian equivalent of an Earth space science book, which I guess to them would be called the Mars Space Science Book, if they even called their planet Mars. We did finally find a book of their exploration of space, which had much different information and pictures in it, even a different overall scope of what space is from a Martian's perspective. We found a picture of Earth and pointed to it. At first, they were confused, then stunned, and then they realized that it was inevitable, that the day would come where explorers from other planets would visit theirs. They had an interplanetary language translator machine. I don't know why they didn't just use it from the start, except that they thought we were from Mars, and I guess it might be disrespectful to pull out an interplanetary translation machine to a fellow Martian. And they used it. It was interesting how it worked. They spoke first. They would open their mouths like they were talking, but no sound came out. And then a crisp, high-quality voice would instantly translate the sentence after it was spoken. The voice was in English, but with a Japanese accent. They welcomed us to Mars and introduced themselves. We then introduced ourselves to them. They were proud to have visitors from another planet in their facility. They asked us how our stay on Mars was so far. We told them that we were hunted and chased by those monster half-human, half-animal beings. They knew who we were talking about and apologized for the behavior of those people. They were ashamed of the animal-human monsters. Even though the animal-human monsters were a different species than the Martians we were interacting with, they viewed them as citizens of Mars. And what I mean by that is, as Earth humans, we don't view animals as citizens. We view them as animals, a lesser species. The Martians' view of the monster humans weren't of them being different species, but as global citizens that did not have manners. They just didn't like the culture of them and explained to us that those monster people value ignorance and rage and being out of control, and that is not the culture shared by the Martian scientists in the building we were now in. They further apologized that we had to experience being chased and that the ignorant rage is not representative of all cultures on Mars. They wanted us to think of Mars as a civilized place that values knowledge and civility and openness to otherworldly cultures. They wanted to form an alliance with us and our scientific establishment on Earth to share knowledge and inventions. They let it be known that they were honored to have us in their presence. I realized that I was the spokesman of the group and spoke to their spokesman one-on-one. I let them know that we too were honored to meet intelligent life that also values knowledge, but because we found them, they were in great danger. I explained that just like on Mars there were the animal-human monsters who value ignorance and rage, I warned them against visiting Earth because they will meet a similar threat. I let them know that my group values their group and that we all share the same value of knowledge, but this value of knowledge and civility is not shared by all Earthlings, just as it wasn't the case on Mars. I suggested that we keep our communications within our groups so as to not endanger the lives of the Earth and Mars scientists. I also let them know that Mars may already be under a future attack because it is quite possible that by this point, members of Earth have discovered that we, my exploring team, discovered life on Mars, and this information offends some Earthlings. The Martian spokesman was curious as to why Earthlings would be offended. I told him that many Earthlings believe that the Earth is the only planet in the universe that has life on it. He thought I was joking. He objected to even believing such a thing, for that Earth was home to billions of life forms. Again, it was very cute that these Martians valued our diversity of life, as well as not seeing animals or fish as lesser beings, like as if we could learn from them and live in harmony together. I reassured him that the belief of the majority of Earthlings was that of being the only intelligent life in the whole entire universe. The spokesman recognized all of us as intelligent, open-minded people and couldn't imagine that we could have a planet with people who live amongst billions of life forms, not see the truth in front of our eyes that the universe is blooming with life and intelligent life. They saw that all life forms have intelligence, but it's because as he assumed that Earthlings don't learn how to communicate with non-humans, we don't learn from them. I pointed out to him that the animal-human monsters on his planet were violent and ignorant and held a limited worldview also. I once again made it clear to not trust Earthlings and that his planet could very well indeed be under future attack from Earth. I wanted him to know that he has eternal friendship with us and that we were very excited about our interplanetary relationship, but the rest of Earth may not be as peaceful. Once he demonstrated to me that he understood the risk, he took me to meet his family. He had 2 children, a boy and a girl. They appeared to be about 12 and 13 years old. They were very happy to see me. They asked me if I had any television programs from Earth to share. I was amazed that there was television on Mars. I wondered how they invented the same exact machine independently. There was no brand name on the TV set. The television programming on Mars was all purely educational, and not child educational with puppets and cute things. It was all just cut and dry informational education. For some reason, I had 2 VHS tapes in my possession. I had a 6-hour tape of professional wrestling, which I gave to the boy, and I had a 6-hour tape of MTV programming, which I gave to the girl. I couldn't believe they had VCRs that could play our tapes on Mars either. Where were they getting these things? The kids popped the tapes in and started jumping up and down on their beds, more excited than any person I've ever seen. They were jumping and screaming and acting crazy. Their father was very happy by this, which I didn't expect. I was ready to apologize to the guy before he said, "You have brought such a wonderful gift, the gift of entertainment. We Martians do not know how to be creative or entertaining. Your tapes of images from Earth have brought us something we cannot create on Mars and are very thankful for this." I didn't know if the guy was joking or what. I said to him, "You don't understand. This stuff is no good. You don't want your kids watching this stuff." And the guy reassured me that what I have done is bestowed upon them the great gift, the gift of entertainment. While he is telling me this, a Britney Spears music video was playing where she was dancing provocatively, and his daughter was imitating the moves, and he thought it was great that she was having such a good time. It appeared as if he didn't see anything morally wrong with it. He saw it good that by imitating the dancer on the TV, that it made his daughter feel beautiful, and was having an imaginative flight of fancy and expression through dance. I explained to him that on Earth, young women dancing like this is frowned upon. He again appeared confused by our culture. He asked, "Is dancing forbidden on your planet?" He continued, "I don't understand. This video is children's programming. If it is for children, why do you all show it to them, and then when they imitate it, you scold them?" He pondered the same thought aloud again. Why would you all show things to your children that you didn't want them to imitate? Why are you mad at her for putting a show on for you? Another music video came on by another female artist, equally provocative, targeted for young girls. His daughter tried imitating the dance moves again. He didn't mind. He commented, "This video looks almost identical in format to the previous. I'm guessing the video that will follow this will also follow a similar format. This entire program is created for young children, and I'm assuming has a large viewership. Does your culture discipline its youth by having them watch these programs and then forces them to abstain from imitating?" I tried to explain, "I really don't know. I guess it's because they are supposedly role models and the videos suggest sex or at least sex appeal to the youth at an early age." I pointed out to him that these aren't my personal opinions, but just the general consensus. The Martian laughed and said, "So you don't like sex on your planet? You forbid sex on your planet? Earth is the sex planet. That is really funny to me considering the amount of life on your planet. You're pulling my leg, right? How many humans do you have on your planet?" I told him 6.2 billion. That's how much we had on Earth at the time of the dream. "You have 6.2 billion people, and you are mad at the pretty girl dancing provocatively? Do you realize that without sex, none of the life on your planet would exist?" He inquired, "Do you forbid sex because of overpopulation concerns?" I thought about his question and realized that the countries that had television programming actually had declining population rates, and the countries that didn't have MTV had rising population rates. I revealed to him this finding. He said, "Maybe this Britney Spears and provocative dancing that the children love to imitate isn't so bad after all." You had to come all the way to Mars to figure that out. By the way, if overpopulation is a concern, on Mars we have something known as contraceptives that help prevent unwanted pregnancies. I told him that we had invented that also. He was further mystified. "You have contraception on your Earth, and you're that overpopulated? You have contraception on Earth, and you forbid sex? I'm not sure I understand your planet." He glanced at his daughter enjoying the music videos and wondered why he should be mad or concerned at someone having a good time and enjoying themselves. He then asked, "You said something that didn't make sense to me. You mentioned that the entertainers, dancers, and singers are the role models for your youth. Why aren't the scientists and engineers your role models?" I was starting to grow tired of being the public relations for Earth and said, "Hey, we have a thing known as audience share and profits on Earth. As you can see by your child dancing around that she is thoroughly enjoying MTV. MTV is a corporation interested in increasing its audience share and profits. Our educational programming on Earth doesn't stand a chance against this. Our educational programming is done mostly by the government with a limited budget and doesn't broadcast for a profit incentive. It doesn't have much advertising either, and if it does, it isn't as effective as MTV's. The lives of scientists and engineers are depicted as boring and partyless. I offered they could keep the VHS tapes and promised to bring more on my next trip. I told them I'd try to see if DirecTV could alter one of its satellites to point towards Mars, but they'd have to find a way to get their currency recognized by our foreign exchange because while DirecTV would be happy to announce they broadcast to Mars, they weren't going to do it for free. Also, the knowledge of Mars would put the planet in danger. We then went back to the laboratory room where everyone else was and said our goodbyes. We had to get back to our spaceship and return to Earth. I again recapped to the spokesman that while our meeting each other was wonderful and enlightening, he should prepare his people for unpredictable, violent Earth-human invasion. Even if Mars does get attacked by Earthlings, it does not mean my group endorses the actions and would like to continue having a friendly relationship with friendly Martians. He acknowledged my warning and hoped that I could convince my fellow Earthlings that Martians and Earthlings can coexist peacefully and that the intelligent people of Mars welcome any intelligent, peaceful peoples of Earth. We hugged each other and mutually let each other know that it was a purely enlightening experience to have met people from other planets, and they would be honored if one day they could visit our planet under our supervision to see what it is like. They were extremely interested in meeting not only humans, but animals and other creatures of Earth. They had a way to communicate with them. I let them know that I would try to arrange it, but even under the tightest security, they put themselves at risk, especially with the animals. We said our goodbyes and left. At this point, I woke up. I know what you're wondering. Do I think Japanese people are Martians? Maybe I subconsciously do. Actually, after this dream, when I interact with Japanese people, mainly at Japanese takeout restaurants, I don't know many Japanese people, I like to think that maybe they remember me from my visitation to their home planet, and they finally made it to Earth and blended in, and are thoroughly enjoying the entertainment of American television and the friendships they make with fish, animals, trees, and bugs, in addition to the humans. Mars Dream 2. Foreign exchange students. I initially thought I was on a one-man space expedition to Mars. I was on Mars. I felt the soil to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Oh, I felt the soil, but that didn't mean I was awake, but I sure thought I was. Once I felt the soil and realized I was awake, I was kind of scared that I was on Mars all by myself. I was trying to remember how I even got myself into the situation. I reminded myself that Don Cheadle survived for a year by himself on Mars in the movie Mission to Mars. I had a remote-controlled robot car that had a video camera on it. I also had a monitor that displayed what the video camera on the robot was recording and had some form of media that was recording what was being displayed so that if the robot got destroyed, the data collection would not be lost. The assigned procedure given to me was to use the robot car to see what was ahead and then advance when I'd seen that everything was clear. This took a long time, and I was getting tired of picking up all my stuff and moving every so often so I wouldn't fall out of range of the robot. I had wished that there was an orbiter with a satellite dish on it so I wouldn't have to stay in range and could just stay in one place. I began to wonder if what I was shown by NASA on Earth growing up was of uninhabited areas of Mars, and the reality is that there was tons of life on Mars. I was more concerned with running into wild Martian animals than Martian humanoids. I realized that even if I saw something ahead on my robot cam, where the heck would I run for cover? I felt vulnerable. I figured I had videotaped some of Mars with the robot camera, and I could show that to people. I had started to question why there was no full motion video footage of Mars available on Earth, only still pictures and some 3D pictures. I was scared and I got back in my spaceship. When I got to my spaceship, I found that I had a crew at the land site and they were doing some kinds of experiments and upkeeping of the spaceship. They asked if I had gotten any good footage or had found anything out there. I told them I hadn't explored too far into Mars because I was using the robot car to see ahead of me. They asked why I didn't just walk ahead on my own without consulting the robot. I told them because my orders were to use the remote-controlled robot car to see that everything ahead was clear and then advance. They asked me, how are you going to get in trouble millions of miles away from Earth? You're the representative on Mars. You can do whatever you want. Who's going to stop you? I acknowledged their point, but also pointed out that I was entrusted with a mission that cost billions of dollars to fund. So the least I can do is do what I was asked to do. They said, okay, well, you did what they wanted you to do. Now let's go do what we want to do. You're a man. Walk it. Walk this planet like you own it. You made it here. You got this far. You're going to just take a few minutes of video and then turn around and fly all the way back home without doing what you want to do? Man, we got here. Let's go look around. I didn't come all this way for nothing. So we walked and walked. Suddenly we found this beach place, shopping mall in the middle of nowhere, and there were people all over reading, walking, buying ice cream, and doing things like you would see at any outdoor shopping mall. There were escalators and structures. It looked like a mix between Beach Place on Fort Lauderdale Beach and Riverwalk in downtown Fort Lauderdale. The people looked like humans from Earth. I walked up to them and asked where they were from. One guy said Hartford. Another said Boston. Another said Denver. And I had to just affirm that these were places on Earth and asked, Boston? Boston in Massachusetts? Hartford in Connecticut? Denver? In Colorado? They all affirmed with yes. I had to make sure there wasn't a duplicate city and state on Mars, so I asked, on Earth, right? And they all shook their head with yes, with a like duh kind of look. I asked what they were all doing there. The guy from Denver said he was there for the Dover Research Fund to search the solar system. He pointed out that in addition to the planets, there were many moons that needed to be explored. The girl from Connecticut was there on a study abroad scholarship for research. The guy from Massachusetts was also a student. They all acted like it was completely normal for people to be on Mars. I saw the systems administrator from my workplace walk by on the walkover walkway near where the escalators led. He had on a Hawaiian shirt and sunglasses and was walking really casual, like he was at the beach all day and like he's been there often. I called out to him. He saw me and stopped his path to talk to me from a distance and mentioned that he successfully got our transportation routing software working. He put his sunglasses back on and walked away like it was normal that we should see each other on Mars. I shouted back to him, "Hey man, what the heck? So what are you doing here?" He stopped again for a second, thought for a short moment, and said he was just stopping through to get a pastry. He then began walking off again. I started laughing at how bizarre everything was and woke up. Iraq weapons in space. In real life, I had gone to bed late, around 5 a.m. My buddy Mike called me up around 8 a.m. because Colin Powell was on television speaking to the UN, presenting a case about Iraq possessing weapons of mass destruction. I realized this might be an historical moment, and I didn't want to miss seeing it live as it was happening. I was really tired, though, and feared I was going to fall back asleep, so I turned the volume on my television all the way up in hopes it would keep me awake. Nope. I fell back asleep, and everything that was said on television got filtered through my subconscious into my dream world. Here is how it unfolded. Colin Powell was showing video of what he referred to as the unsanctioned zone between the moon and Mars. Orbiting back and forth between was a giant metallic cylinder satellite. Inside the satellite, he said, were weapons of mass destruction that were owned by Iraq. He pointed out that Iraq's possession of these weapons were in the unsanctioned zone of outer space between the moon and Mars. He acknowledged that Saddam Hussein was not in violation of any Earth or solar system laws. However, Colin Powell pointed out that even though Saddam was not in violation of any laws, the mere possession of these weapons posed a threat to not only citizens of Earth, but also the moon and Mars and any other citizens of the solar system and the universe. Powell said the US and UN have asked Saddam to dispose of the weapons, but Saddam contends that he is not violating any laws. Powell said that while Iraq is not violating the law, the world and solar system would be a safer place if Iraq did not possess these weapons. Finally, Powell acknowledged that the United States will take part in military action against Iraq to remove the uncooperative government, confiscate the weapons orbiting the moon to Mars, and do it all even though Iraq is not in violation of any laws. His famous soundbite statement that made the headlines was, "Although Saddam Hussein has not violated any written laws, his actions violate our laws of common sense. To sit back and do nothing is a violation to civilization." A series of news stories surfaced in my dreams debating whether or not it was legal for the United States to invade Iraq on the grounds that Saddam Hussein has weapons orbiting in space and might use them against Earth, the Moon, or Mars, even though Iraq's possession of these weapons was in no direct violation of any Earth or space laws. Then I woke up. Moon Dream 1. I was on the moon in blue jeans and a short-sleeved t-shirt and a hat. My arms got burned due to ultraviolet radiation. For some reason, my dentist was there and got burned worse than me. He had sun blisters on his face, and his lips got burned as well. I realized being on the moon without a spacesuit isn't a good idea, no matter what John Lear or Vladimir Terziski say. Then I woke up. This concludes Chapter 5, Part 1. Part 2 will be on time travel dreams. Author's reflection years later. Well, I hope Japanese people found it cute, the part about Mars. It was in no way meant to be offensive. Just be happy you guys appeared in my dreams and that we had a good time and embraced each other and shared our scientific revelations with each other. But yeah, I don't know what kind of politically correct mess I could have got myself into with that, but I was just trying to be cute. Besides which, it's what actually happened in my dreams. I was just trying to report accurately what I saw in my dreams so that, who knows. One of the things I do remember from that dream that I guess I forgot to write it in, was the part about the Martians were interested in interacting with, like, sea creatures. I remember they were asking about, like, walruses, and they also wanted to talk to trees and plants. And I don't know how that's not in this. I could have sworn I wrote that in, because that part was the part I was laughing about the most, when they wanted to talk to, like, turtles and sharks and dolphins and whales and giraffes and elephants. And I was like, look, we don't talk to animals on our planet. And he kind of, like, lectured me on why not. And I forgot, they wanted to interact with something else too. And I'm so disappointed it's not in here. I don't know what happened. I feel like a page is missing. But he was explaining, like, the things that could be learned. In fact, he wanted the animals to have, like, their own vote. He's like, you don't let them vote in your government, or they don't have a say. Don't you wonder what they think about the planet? You guys don't have any ambassadors to the shrimp. He's like, why don't you guys talk to them? You could learn so much about your planet if you'd open up communication with all of the other creatures of your planet. How do you not recognize them as Earthlings too? And I think there was even some evidence of people having dogs and cats that the Martians knew about. And he was like, you guys have dogs and cats. They live in your house, but you don't have open communication with them. So what do you guys, just ignore each other all the time? And there was some other part, though, that he told me. And it was so profound. And it wasn't talking to animals or sea creatures. I don't know if it was talking to the plants. I think it might have been like the old redwood forest trees. Or he's like, the old trees live longer than people. And you could get a lot of historical information if you speak to them. And I think he even was talking to rocks and mountains and other things that we don't think as living. I gotta tell you, it's really disappointing that this is not in here. I'm gonna look in my, I have a first edition copy of the book, because what I'm reading right now is the second edition, and I'm just wondering if like a whole page accidentally got deleted, because everything I just said, it seems like a lot of material. And I don't know how all this whole part of the conversation, like as I was reading it just now, I feel like the conversation ended abruptly. I was like, no, I remember there was so much more to the conversation. So, man, what a bummer though. Like that was the best part of this whole thing, and it's not in here. So, what a shame. Just know that these Martians really encouraged us to interact with more than just human beings on our planet, like on an intellectual level. And I think he even was like, man, how do you not interact with the birds? I don't think he called them birds, but he kind of had the idea that, well, anything could happen in a dream. So he somehow knew that there were birds and flying creatures on Earth. And I was like, those birds have such a different vantage point than you guys have. What a waste of profound knowledge you guys have not tapped into by being so arrogant to only verbally interact with other human beings. Do you not see all these other life forms? They inhabit your planet. They all live there. They all have their own form of government. They have their own science. Utilize them. You'll be surprised at what you could learn. And I'm like, oh, dude, it's easier said than done. We can't just talk to birds. They don't even have like voice boxes. How do you propose us doing that? And I think I asked him how they do it on their planet. But then I remember, and I don't think this was in here, I remember I chastised him. I'm like, look, you're telling us that we need to talk to all the other life forms on our planet, and here you guys are, you won't talk with these animal humanoid things that tried attacking us. So, and then he went into like like trying to explain their relationship with those creatures. Man, there's so much missing from this. I'm going to have to go look this up. I hope it's not lost forever, and I know that there's no way I would edit this out of a second edition. So I'm guessing somehow like a delete button was accidentally pressed, or a select all or a select a lot. This is terrible. Well, I hope this version of me speaking on it now makes up for it. I mean, I think the guy even said that, he's like, look at the grass around you. The grass could always lead you on the right path. You don't need GPS. If you just communicated with the dirt, the grass, and all the things around you, it could lead you in the right direction. That there was just so much information that we're not taking in. The part in that same dream regarding Britney Spears dancing and everything, Britney Spears was on TV all the time at the time of writing this. Before Miley Cyrus, Britney Spears was the present day Madonna. So because it was so overabundant in the news, it somehow transferred its way into my dreams. So that's why that's there. I thought that dream was great, though, that I had VHS tapes of wrestling and MTV, and I gave it to them, and the kids were jumping up and down on the bed, so thrilled to get to see our American programming on Mars. So everything about that dream was really cute. That was a great dream. I also like the Iraq weapons of mass destruction dream. That really happened. Like I was going to bed late, 5 a.m., and my buddy calls, "Hey man, you got to turn on the TV. Colin Powell's on." And man, I was so exhausted, and I just turned my TV up to like 60, which was like it was as high as it could go. It must have been so loud, and it didn't work. I blacked out, and the dream panned out that way. The unsanctioned zone between the moon and Mars. How do I come up with this stuff? Like, look, as I'm reading it, I'm cracking up because I couldn't come up with this stuff on my own. Only the dream world could make these cool concepts up. So yeah, these are all just actual dreams I had over 10 years ago. And in this chapter, some of these dreams date back as far back as 2000, 2002, 2003. So they're over 13 years old. Hopefully you guys were around during those eras with an old enough age to kind of get some of the references to the time period. But yeah, those were the space dreams. Coming up next are the time travel dreams. And I hope it was amusing, enjoyable. It gives you a glimpse into my subconscious or whatever the dream world produces. So that's that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in Chapter 5, Part 2.